Hello, 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 hello. It's good to see you. Say hello.
Welcome to the Husky Hockey Podcast, your number one resource to remind you to not look at the pairwise this early in the season. It means absolutely nothing. I'm Weldie, sitting here with Andrew, and the reason I'm starting the show out like this is because I don't want to say I'm getting roasted right now on Twitter at More Clappers, but it's, everyone's given their little tidbits, little thoughts about where we're at in the pairwise right now. There's just so much that can change from now until when it actually matters, because the pairwise only really matters in one day in March. And obviously there's a lot of building up to it, and things matter throughout the whole season, and I get that. But you look at this time last year, Denver was 37th in the pairwise. All right, so I just stop looking at it now. It means absolutely nothing, and already seeing so much talk about being where we're at in the pairwise, or some famous figurehead saying that the math doesn't add up in the pairwise and what the rankings are. So just Elsa, just let it go. If we're we shouldn't be too worried about it right now, because we got games in front of us. We got a whole season. Let's enjoy the ride for a little bit before we start having to sweat out the RPI to the 1,000th decimal place. That's my thought. That's my piece. That's my rant. End soapbox.
Yeah, I said last week, just treat it as a Thanksgiving Day, a Black Friday present. Treat it as a doorbuster. Just blind yourself to it and then open it up that day, and you'll be surprised. Now, I guess I really don't. If you want to look at it, fine. You just got to put it in context. You should just have fun with it, just as if it's like a random sort of pick your number. Oh, Denver, 37. Realize that doesn't mean anything. And St. Cloud being 1 or 2 or whatever they're at, good. I guess you want to be high up in the rankings, but we got a long season to go. Harvard doesn't have a loss yet, and teams that are undefeated or that don't have wins yet, which I think there's a couple like Dartmouth, Brown we know is off the schneid, but teams need to have a loss, and every team needs to have a win, every team needs to have a loss in order for them to even become like bad rankings or small sample size rankings. That's the bare minimum that we need to do in order for them to be even maybe slightly understandable. But even then, I think it's still too early. Knock yourself out if you want to look at it, but if you're putting stock into it, you're doing it wrong, is what I'm saying. So
what was the year that broke the pairwise? Was that 12-13? The Gopher women's hockey team, who just suffered their first loss of the season, by the way.
Go Huskies, woo.
Go Huskies, woo! On that one, congratulations. And they were undefeated that year, and the pairwise, I believe, was just, it literally broke it. It like nothing made sense. Like their RPI was like 1.E56. Like it was something just absolutely bonkers.
It's a flaw with the system. I remember, CHN didn't have the they used to not have the pairwise up this early in years past at all, but I remember there was, maybe Austro had it. It was after the first weekend of the year, and like St. Cloud swept, I'm going to say Bemidji State or something. And looking at it, like Bemidji State was 2 in pairwise or something after this, like after they got swept on the opening week. It's high fantasy. It's very creative. I'm sure that I'm going to have to look at it now because you're talking about it so much, but let's just go down it, because I'm sure there's some like Atlantic hockey team or two that you're like, what? Kill some time because I'm gonna have to look at this now. Thanks for
Well,
letting
I
having me
said
break my own
don't
rule.
look at it. Why are you pulling an Uno reverse card on me? Princeton does not have a win. They're the only team that doesn't have a win so far this season.
Dartmouth has a win. Look
Yeah,
at that. They beat Yale 6-0.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean Boston University's 4-3 and they're at 7.
Cornell is 1-3, and I think our brown voter in the USCHO poll switched over to Cornell. So I think that's our latest poll update.
I don't know. I'm sick of the bid, I guess. It's just I don't know. If you want to look at it, fine. I maybe that's my new thing. I don't really care, but maybe this is another like lesson 700 or reason 722 why I'm not on Twitter. Because if you're saying that this is some sort of bit, I'm really glad to not be involved in it.
Yeah, Twitter's been just I've never been involved in, and maybe because it's, social media and, a whole new different thing, but never been involved in a company that is just slowly eating itself alive. Maybe not even slowly, but ever since Elon kind of took over, everything has been going haywire.
I love it.
It's been really enjoyable for someone who actually likes being on Twitter, but
I am very much in favor of him buying that. If only because I think there's a decent chance he kills it.
Yeah. He might get there, So let's do something crazy on this episode and talk a little hockey. I guess we should switch gears here. Denver, St. Cloud State on Friday at Magnus, and wins in overtime 4-3. And rubber match goes to Denver in regulation. They win 3-2. And Andrew, you were there. You were at the wonderful confines of the Church of Magnus Arena. And how was your trip? How was your experience? My experience when I was there with the Denver fans was not very pleasant on Saturday. So I wonder if it was kind of the same for you or how everything went. How'd it go?
No, I had that trip in Denver a couple of years ago. I was more well behaved this time around. Got along fine with everybody. It was I thought a great weekend. A great weekend of hockey. I kind of sprung for pricier seats than I would normally go for. Bringing a few friends to the game, well, one friend each night, and I mentioned last week, one of them hadn't been to a hockey game before, so wanting to, not just cheap out on the seats. And so I think that played a part in it, but I thought 2 extremely well-played hockey games. The games I thought were well worth the money. Coming off that Bemidji series and talking about the Friday game 2 Fridays ago now, not the best showing of entertainment there, and did not want to have that happen with my travels to Denver. And I do not think that I got that. I am, even with taking 2 out of 6 points for the Huskies, Denver taking 4. We're talking conference points now. 4 points for Denver, 2 for the Huskies. I'm feeling more confident about the St. Cloud team after this series, even with taking a minority of the points. They were able to hang with Denver. And
interesting.
Perhaps you can factor in an early season Denver still trying to find their game. As you mentioned last year, had some struggles early on in the season that they had to work out before they really became a powerhouse in that second half of the year and then going into the tournament. So maybe I'm taking too much into that, but this was a good weekend for St. Cloud, I thought. Maybe you're thinking it differently, and maybe I'm just taking my in the building sort of hadn't attended a Huskies game in a while in person. maybe I'm taking that too much, or taking too much stock into the result here. But I thought that's a good Denver team, and I thought St. Cloud was an able rival, and played with them. And especially that Friday game was very entertaining, especially towards the end there. I thought that was some high quality hockey. You?
I guess I feel like I should be more sold on this team than I am, and I don't know what's stopping me. And I think maybe it boils down to I've just been spoiled over some of those, kind of high flying Huskies offense where, I didn't feel like there was, I mean, I don't want to say dead weight, but I mean, you look at the third and fourth lines of, this team some of those teams of the, recent past of those number one seeds, there's a clear difference there. And maybe I'm just kind of yearning for that, maybe a little bit more. And more so like the dominating of, possession, dominating on the 5-on-5. And again, this is a good Denver team. So, I mean, but I just feel that there's just a little something that I'm missing that really can kind of get me on board with this team. And I don't know what that is. That's just, and I think it's just my fault when I look at everything, because I don't know what more kind of we need to do. Like I don't know. So I'm kind of in a weird place with this Husky team. And I'm, obviously I'm gonna keep cheering and I'm gonna keep going for it. And this is gonna be a fun ride. I'm gonna really enjoy this season. But there's just something that's stopping me from getting 100% on board, and I haven't put my finger on it quite yet.
Yeah, that is interesting. I guess I don't know what to tell you. Well, time will tell whether my optimism is apt or if your pessimism is more correct. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, these
But
are
I mean, we had really good showing against Mankato. We had a really good showing here this weekend against Denver. I mean, we lost to Bemidji, but guess what? Bemidji, that happens. I mean, that's weird. So, it's like Bemidji, especially at Bemidji, that really good teams can falter there. They have all the time. So I don't know. I'm really. I think the real test is going to come actually this weekend when it's a team I feel we should beat. And just to see if we can kind of rise up, because the Western Michigans, of the conference, these are the ones that you really have to beat to really solidify yourself as an upper echelon team in the NCHC and therefore college hockey. And if we do stumble here this weekend, that's where I just, maybe I just need to, have a one great dominating weekend against a solid team. Maybe not a dominating weekend, but one where we take care of business. I think that is what's going to get me kind of really on board with this team. And let's hope that happens here against Western Michigan.
Yeah, I don't want to get too far ahead of us, as we will be previewing the Broncos series here after we recap Denver. But now that we're on the topic, I sort of agree. I think my opinion of Western sounds like it's higher than yours. I think Western's a pretty good team, actually. And I don't think they're a team that we should expect the St. Cloud to bulldoze. I'm concerned that I'm wondering if there's going to be a letdown here. I'm thinking that Friday night game is I don't have a good feeling about it, because I feel like St. Cloud got up to play their best game against Denver, and I think they might underestimate Western Michigan a little bit. And Western has been a offensive juggernaut this year. We'll get to that later. But
yeah, we'll get to that.
Yeah, I just the more games that we play here, the more evidence that we'll get as far as how good this team is. I'm the way that North Dakota's underwhelmed, the way that Duluth is underwhelmed. I would almost want to put Western in that top half of the league at this point. If I was going to adjust my season prediction before the season, I think I would be higher on Western than I was going into the year. So I think this is another challenge for this team. And so I hope that they do not take them lightly. I hope that they take the lessons that they did against Denver to heart. Use that as more motivation going into next weekend, but certainly don't take the opposition lightly, because you blink and Western can score a couple of goals and you won't know what happened there. So let's maybe just stick to the weekend that was before we get ahead of ourselves too much, and maybe recap some of these games.
Agreed, but I just want to put a quick addendum. I'm not expecting them to bulldoze Western, but I do feel like it's a team we got to take 4 points from, or more. So
I think Western's going to win on Friday. But
yeah, well,
I'd love to see it. I'd love to see a 4+ point weekend.
Let's go back. Friday's game against Denver. Powerhouse weekend all around. I mean, with this being 2 versus 4 in the nation, according to all the pollsters, and it was. I was a little bit nervous about this game, about how we were going to kind of start out. Kind of thinking back to maybe that Mankato series where, Mankato really took it to us. For the first 10 minutes of that, I thought, St. Cloud on Friday came out flying.
Mm-hmm.
Chronala scores the goal early. I thought just an overall really good period there, but Benning ends up scoring a little bit later in the period, gives it 1-1. And then second period, kind of stuck in that little funk there in the second. Denver kind of took a little bit over, and Justin Lee ended up getting the goal, making it 2-1. And I'm like, okay, we're down 2-1 going into the third. And then, that third period was probably the most entertaining hockey that I've seen probably this year from all aspects. So Crookshank scores to tie it up on that beautiful slap shot that just went bar down. So that was exciting to see. I screamed throughout the Weldon household, that's for sure. Rizzo ends it up, going back, taking the lead again late in the third. And Okabe, then extra attacker, just kind of turns and fires it blindly, and ends up getting by Corona. So then the 3-on-3 overtime, and Miettinen scores the game winner. I tweeted out a screenshot of Miettinen, and from the first instance of when he's had a 4-on-2, and he controlled the puck, and he ended up trying to take a shot from kind of the far corner of the ice, instead of making some sort of a play to get his teammates the puck or whatnot. It's a low percentage shot, and I just was like, this is what sums it up with Miettinen, why he's not really goal producing, is he's trying these far shots that are contested, just trying to pad his shots and not getting into prime scoring chances. And then he takes advantage on that 3-on-3 with Crookshank doing a sweet drop pass there, and Miettinen was able to pick up the puck and rifle it in from a much better scoring angle and a scoring chance. And that's I was really excited to see that. So that's awesome. Thought Jackson Castor, I thought he played serviceable in net. 2 of them, though, I thought he wished that he probably would have had back. But it was, overall, I thought it was a very fun, even hockey game. And just, there in person, what were your thoughts?
Yeah.
How did your friend like it?
Good. I think we'll get a thumbs up there. I'm not going to say that that's going to be the start of a lifelong love of hockey, but going overtime and some late the late kind of exchange of goals at the end of the third was definitely interesting. Yeah. Much.
This was another instance of like me being really excited about this team not giving up. When they kind of kept on that pressure. They get down, with 2 minutes and change to go in the game, and they're able to, answer less than a minute later. So that's I love seeing that.
Yeah. So I agree with that first 8-10 minutes or so kind of being dominated by the Huskies. Great to see them come out like that. We've seen them sort of have some slower starts. We did see that on Saturday. They took them about 10 minutes to even get a shot on goal against Denver. But good 10 minutes. That Benning goal I thought was a highlight reel goal. Nothing that Castor could have done there. Great goal there. Yeah, the second goal for Denver, I'm not sure if Castor was screened there. Did not look like a great goal. But you knew...
Yeah, he must have been screened.
Knew that it wasn't going to end 2-1. Crookshank's goal, as you said, ties it up in the third, but I thought after that, St. Cloud sort of was playing for overtime. And that ended up biting them because that third goal for Denver, which I figured was going to be the game winner, from Rizzo, a goal where St. Cloud is just sort of penned in their own zone and on their heels and just kind of in a prevent defense. And against a team like Denver and against the top line that Denver has, that Rizzo, Dornbach, and Mazer line is a really good line.
I don't think we're going to see a better line all season.
And you might be right.
That line was just a force out there every time they touched the ice.
Right. And so at that point, thinking, hey, gave it a good shot, but it's coming up close. But then, Okabe with the goal. So 3 of the 4 goals here, including Mietin's game winner, kind of high shots that they're beating Krona, which I thought was interesting. You're talking about Mietin and wanting that to take that snipe. And I don't think that was Krona specific, but I do think that the Huskies figured out that they can beat him high with some shots, so it doesn't surprise me if those last 3 goals are exactly how they beat him. And it sort of was their MO on Saturday as well. They wanted to go high on him, and they were able to beat him. Krona looked, I thought, average for Denver on Friday.
I always thought Krona was an average.
I think I'm higher on him than you are.
Even last year, I was just like, I don't think he's that good. He's serviceable.
Yeah, he's a Renak type goalie. Whatever you feel a Renak, then that's what I kind of feel about Krona. And then when the overtime comes, sure, we'll talk about this, where Larson takes the risk of challenging the potential major, goes on the penalty kill instead because no major was called and had burned his timeout. So risk that, having a 2-minute penalty called against him if he wasn't able to, if the refs did not call that a major, which is exactly what happened. And I turned to my friend at that point. Is like the only question for me is if St. Cloud's going to touch the puck, because we saw that last year where a couple of times St. Cloud wasn't able to touch puck in overtime. And I'm thinking 4-on-3 with that Rizzo, Mazer, Dornbach line.
Yeah,
like good night. But credit to the team, they were able to kill that off, and shortly after, it was a score.
Yeah, huge props to the penalty kill in overtime because it was a very pedestrian-looking power play, and the penalty killers really kept them at bay for most of it.
Yeah, good kill all weekend. Just the one power play goal that Denver gave up, or that Denver scored on Saturday. That's factoring in a major that St. Cloud had to kill on Saturday, and perfect on the kill on Friday. So that's a unit that's been fantastic so far this year, penalty kill, and the power play too. Special teams has really done a major part in putting in how well St. Cloud has done this year so far. So yeah, I thought it was a very entertaining game. As you said, Castor had a couple there, the third one too. I'm sure he kind of would want back as well, but I thought he played good enough. He made some key saves that he needed to make, and I don't think that this was a game that St. Cloud stole. I think this is one that they earned and kind of went head to head with a heavyweight conference rival, and were able to come out with not the 3-point regulation win, but 2-point overtime win, certainly will take that any day. And feeling after that game was like Saturday is going to be a gravy game for St. Cloud. And it, Denver kind of had the pressure, I would say, going into you don't want to get swept. We're counting overtime losses the same as sweep is a sweep. You figure that they were going to come out stronger on Saturday, and they certainly did, scoring the first 2 goals within the first 2 minutes of the game. At that point, you're thinking St. Cloud might, this might be a rout. Pretty much since, as I mentioned, that first 10 minutes, they gave up the first 2 goals about 2.5 minutes in. And then it's, I think, 10 minutes in where St. Cloud finally gets their first shot. So that weathered the storm there after the first 10 minutes. And after that point, I thought St. Cloud, had a decent amount of chances against Denver. And I thought Bassi played very well on Saturday. That second goal that he gave up, you can tell even on the replay, kind of slams his stick down after the goal. A tip, from Devine from a shot on the point. One that I think he would want back. But seeing as the rush that Denver had for the first 10 minutes, and then for the many opportunities they had, as mentioned, 5-minute power play on the major to Cranola, which Cranola was lost for the game after that. He made some huge saves. That game I thought deserved to be much more than 3-2, and I think Bassi was a big part in keeping the game close. And St. Cloud is twice able to get to back to 1 goal down, but not quite able to tie the game. He had the power play goal with Crookshank there in the second period, or excuse me, in the third. Cranola power play goal in the second before he exited. Sure, we can talk about that. Mayhew with the game winner for Denver on the power play in the third period. As mentioned, the only power play goal that Denver scored on the weekend, and that one was one where it's just an inability for St. Cloud to clear that puck. Several chances. I think maybe
they had 4 or 5 chances to clear that puck, and whatever with whiffing on it or puck hitting a teammate and bouncing around or whatnot. It was one of those that it's like a train or a car wreck in slow motion. It's like it's gonna come, and it's just kind of a matter of time. But seeing here the that 2 goals kind of quick early on, and I'm just thinking, okay, if we get out of this period, let's get down. If we're still down only 2-1 or 2-0, that's going to be a win. Then second period kind of came out. We got our feet kind of back together and got a good rush. And I'm thinking here at that time, okay, let's just cut it lead to half, 2-1 going into the third. We're going to be fine. Cranola scores, awesome. Cranola gets kicked out, not awesome. And then that kind of that 5-minute penalty kill. Again, great job on the penalty kill, but that was kind of a momentum breaker. And then getting another penalty for Ingram for tripping, again right at the beginning of the third, and that's when Mayhew scored to make 3-1. And I'm like, but we tried what we could there at the end of that third period, and probably one of the worst extra attacker attempts when it comes to. I don't think I've seen a worse extra attacker sequence without allowing a goal as the Huskies did, because I think they pulled with a little more than a minute. I don't think we even touched the offensive zone. Miettinen, I think, had 3 saves.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's credited for 3 saves.
Post had a couple of saves too.
Yeah, so I mean, that was a little bit frustrating.
Well, after Crookshank scores that goal to make it 3-2, about the next couple of shifts, Okabe had a golden opportunity, sort of on a not a wraparound, but right on the side of the net there. That I'm sure that one is in his in his nightmares haunting him, because I think 9 times out of 10 he's able to put that puck home. So after that goal and then after that chance, I'm just thinking, St. Cloud had all the momentum, but it was somewhere, a minute or two after that Denver was able to recontrol the momentum, and after that last 5 minutes, including, as you said, the extra attacker time for the Huskies, just no real chances to write home about, and Denver salts away a hard-earned victory. But like I said, it was definitely a weekend full of drama and intrigue. What'd you think about that Cranola play, the 5-minute major and ejection?
Well, let's go back. Let's go back
Sure.
to the challenge on Friday,
Sure.
because I think these kind of go hand in hand. At least they do for me. Now with the not being called, and you're going into overtime, and you look at it, it's a hard hit. When I saw it live, I thought it was a penalty, and they let play kind of continue. Larson challenged it for a potential for a 5-minute major, ends up losing the challenge. And at that point, I was like, when he said it was a challenge, I immediately thought it was the wrong decision, no matter what. Because I just think from a risk reward standpoint, now obviously it ended up working out for the Huskies anyway. They killed the penalty and they ended up winning. But I just think the risk reward wasn't enough for something that's a judgment call. And I think a very tough call for the refs to kind of go back and say, yep, okay, that was a 5-minute major. I don't know. I can't think off the top of my head, at least, that I've seen that. So, but that they've actually went back and called it. I'm probably missing a case or two, but I just feel like that's incredibly rare. Now, obviously, I saw on Twitter and I saw a lot of people up in arms about that not being called. I know the coaching staff is livid about it as well. So it's when I looked at the replay, I looked at it as where the principal point of contact was and the kind of extension after that. So even as I was looking at it, I looked at that as whatever you wanted to see out of it is what you would get out of it. If you wanted that to be a penalty, you could kind of see that there was contact to the head, and if you didn't want to see that there was a penalty or anything along those lines, you say, well, no, it was his elbow was following through from the hit and it just looked like it went by his head. So, I mean, I didn't know. And when it's that kind of a judgment call, it didn't surprise me that it wasn't called a major. So that's where I kind of landed on it. So I'm not surprised that it wasn't a major. Should it have been a major? I can see both sides. Again, I'm really sitting on the fence on this one. How did you see it?
Yeah, I had to go back, obviously, being in the stands, and that was sort of far from where I was. I was in the opposite corner of that. So in the building, I figured that's what the challenge was for. That kind of waited there, delay after the third period buzzer blew. And then going back to look at it, yeah, I don't think it was a good challenge. And looking at the replay, yeah, I don't see how they would call that a major. I mean, I'm fine with that being a no call. Maybe that's ridiculous, but I didn't necessarily see a major on that hit. And I'm wondering because you get an extra time, they burn their timeout, I think in the second period, kind of an odd time to use it. Denver was playing pretty well, had a decent spurt. And I think St. Cloud was caught on a line change on an icing, I think. So burned it somewhere in the middle of the second period. So you didn't have one left. I believe you get one in overtime. You get another timeout. I think that's right. Maybe he was thinking, hey, that's the timeout that I'm going to be risking. But because this is a play that was reviewed towards the end of the third period, I'm assuming he knew that he was risking the penalty when he made that challenge. I hope so. But I was a little confused there because I didn't know if that was on the line for that call or not. They didn't really tell us that in the building. But looking back, I'm not surprised that they didn't call that a 5. If you're risking losing a challenge, if you're risking a penalty to challenge something, I think it's got to be a goal situation. Like, if they waved off a goal, or if they didn't count a goal that crossed the line, you know what I mean? Like, because like you're saying, what you're asking the refs to go back and do is to reverse a subjective call. And that you're bringing in pride and history and
way too many human elements
there, whereas the goal or no goal thing is much more of an objective call, I think. So when you're risking that much, when that much is on the line, if this was a situation where he still had his timeout and asking for the challenge there, just would have burned his timeout, go for it, because that would have given you the 5-minute overtime, or 5-minute, basically the entire overtime would have been a power play for you, sure. But I think that's too much to risk. I would not have done it. Of course, I mean, we could say 2020, hindsight, but as you said, it worked out for the Huskies because they were able to burn the penalty, kill the penalty, and then score the winner. But yeah, I would not have made that challenge at that time. But yeah, as you said, we've seen majors called for a lesser hit as well. I kind of at this point just kind of throw my hands up like, ooh, yeah, it depends on who the reffing team is. It depends on what mood they're in. Depends on how the game's going. Like if St. Cloud had taken a major themselves earlier in that game, maybe they would have given Denver the major there to even it up. You know what I mean? Like a lot of times, I think even going into the Crandall hit on Saturday, and as kind of when I rewatched parts of the stream, to get to see the play for myself, being there in the stands again, I was on the other end of the ice for that Crandall hit. Even the refs or even the announcers for Denver was saying, it's not necessarily the hit, it's the result of the hit that will get called. And I think their color guy did not think it was a major. Looking back in the building and looking on the replay, I did not think that was a major for Crandall. But seeing as Barons is hurt and he's gone for the game, and so I'm not surprised that they called it. And big swing in the game, I thought, losing Crandall, taking because he took another minor on that play in the scrum afterwards. He had taken a penalty earlier in the period, so second period for Crandall is a eventful one. Scores a goal and takes 19 penalty minutes. So certainly a big swing and huge. I mean, the penalty itself was big, but losing Crandall might have been the bigger for the rest of the game. Might have been the bigger penalty because having a good weekend, scoring 2 goals in the first 2 period or game and a half essentially, and losing him on your top line. And we haven't even mentioned that Kupka did not make this trip with an illness. So having 2 top 6 guys, playing on your top 2 lines, gone for the last half of that game, or period and a half, let's say, on Saturday, big loss for St. Cloud. And in fact, that they were able to cut it to 3-2 and damn near tie the game, I thought is another credit to the extra level that this team can go to and some of the depth that they do have. So, but let's get back to that Crandall play. What was your take on that major call?
Well, when I looked at that, I looked at it as I felt like it more came, from a little bit more of the side than from the back of checking from behind. So my issue more isn't the fact that, the hit on Brand wasn't called, but it's just the fact that I look at these 2 hits and just think of it as a consistency issue, because I feel like both of them have their merits of being a 5-minute, and both of them have their merits of not being it, and having one be one and the other not being one was just really confusing to me, because when I looked at the Crandall hit, I was like, I mean, kind of from behind, but I it was more, like you said, more of the result, and he went down and, he did not come back, and, for obviously, we're not wishing ill will or injury to any player or anything along those lines. But I mean, it just felt like I didn't think it was that terrible of a hit. There's Aaron Marvin's on Jay
Right.
Genoways, that was worse.
A little bit.
But it's so that's kind of what I was more frustrated about is just I just didn't think the consistency was the inaccurate or the inconsistency of that is just more frustrating for me than anything else.
Yeah.
Even if they were the different types of hits, but it's still I can't look at one and say that definitely is one and that other one is definitely not. To me, they're kind of in the same ballpark.
Yeah. It's Barron's top 2 defenseman for Denver. He's gone. He had to go to the hospital and check some stuff out. Hope that he's all right. But yeah, if he's not injured, and maybe that's ridiculous to say, the hit is what is what injured him. So why wouldn't you call that? But if he doesn't go down in a heap, and if he's not one of their best defensemen, does he get the 5-minute major there? I'm not sure. Is it fair to assume that the refs have that in their minds when they're making their judgment? Maybe they do, maybe they don't. I don't know. But yeah, in the building, I remember thinking that didn't look like a major to me, and then maybe thinking, okay, well, I must have not had the best view of it. Just one of those plays where I was kind of pointing to the guy that I went to the game with on Saturday. That was a play where there was a loose puck. I think it was Denver they were in their offensive zone, pass to the point from their deep corner was an errant pass, and so it's sort of like a self-icing situation. But Cranola saw that it was him with Barons, and he tried to outgun him. And it was I just love it when Cranola cranks into that high gear as a skater. He's just got such a clean skating motion, and when he goes into that fast gear, and that's what I said to my friend. I said, this guy's got the speed. Just watch him beat him to the puck. But he was going a little too fast. It sounds, and Barons kind of went in there sort of at the bad angle, and bore the brunt of a hit. As you said, I thought it was more of a side hit, but Crannell was certainly playing the heel for the Denver fans. Denver fans were not happy I think that Denver fans thought that the officiating was very pro Husky, and which I thought was funny, because I'm sure the penalty minutes were definitely tilted the other way. But when St. Cloud scored that, Crookshank scored that power play goal, it was a showering of boos because there was that play with Sahlquist kind of got run into the goaltender, and they didn't call that, which I thought was a good no call. Again, call me biased, but I don't think that I thought he was sort of pushed into him. So that they did not like that because I think Cranola scored later in that power play. So pretty much after that, halfway through the second, anytime St. Cloud was on the power play, it was just booing, and then Cranola was being booed because he was the guy that made the hit. So St. Cloud was, they were the heel wrestler for the Denver fans this weekend. But
after scoring the first goal too on Friday, he went over and punched the glass right next to a bunch of Denver fans too. So I think he's got that edge to him, which definitely also kind of shows up on his penalty minutes, which I remember frustrated me last year with him.
Right.
Mietinen still zero penalty minutes.
There was zero on the career.
On his career. So that's
it's nuts.
There's got to be that's got to be some kind of college hockey record, or what's the most
minutes played?
Least.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, just kind of some stray thoughts I want to say about the series and Denver. First off, as far as St. Cloud State is concerned and how St. Cloud State goes, we desperately need to work on our odd man rushes. I mean, especially I think on Friday, but even on Saturday, there were a couple of chances where we had some odd man rushes and we just either just whistled it right into their breadbasket or just came in lethargic or tried one too many passes or anything along those lines. But our 3-on-2s, 2-on-1s, I thought especially our 3-on-2s look absolutely abysmal. And also that 4-on-2 with Bienton as well. I was very frustrated with our odd man rushes. And I was actually talking with Go Huskies Woo throughout the game, and he made an observation that I agree with, is that this Denver team kind of reminded us of the late 90s, early 2000s Wisconsin team, where you had Heatley and Reinprint on the same line, very top heavy, and then you got three lines that are just, they're solid, but they're not going to really blow you away, and then that line comes out, and then it's okay, hold your breath. And I agree with that, with one caveat, is that defensively this Denver team is incredibly good. I was really impressed with Mayhew, really all weekend. I thought he had a fantastic weekend. And then obviously Barron's, I thought he had a good weekend until his injury. And then the one guy with the three vowels that I can't pronounce.
Booyam.
Booyam?
Booyam. Yeah, he's good too.
I thought he was incredibly good too. So but I don't see this team repeating. So I'll just say that. I just feel like I don't see them, as they are now. Obviously things can change, but I don't see them pulling together 4 wins against 4 quality opponents.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. It is early, and I think that I would agree. That second line they had, I'm trying to think. This Thompson, was, I believe, a freshman. I thought he looked pretty good on Saturday. This Carter,
he was really good on the face-off draw.
Yeah, this Carter King, who I remember he scored one of the goals against the Huskies last year. I think he was on the 4th line. He might be on the 3rd line this year. Grinder type. He reminds me of a Dan Cronic, if you want a good reference back in the day. He's not going to wow you with the skill and the speed that a guy like Mazur does, for instance. But
wait, are you telling me Dan Cronic didn't wow you with his skill and speed?
He was a figure skater, as we all know. Dazzled us with his triple axles. No, he's a guy that that third goal, the third goal on Saturday with the sort of 5 chance, couldn't clear the puck. Carter or King was right in the middle of that, grinding it up, greasing it up, and those are unsexy players, unsexy plays, but they get the job done. Thinking back a little bit more recently, how about Will Hammer? There's maybe a more up to date comp for Carter King, but so I mean,
I like the Dan Cronic comparison.
My roommate and I, we were the chairman and vice chairman of the Dan Cronic fan club in that 06-07 season or whatever it was.
Especially when he played against
Duluth, right? Get his revenge. He was always good for parking his ass in front of getting a greasy power play goal at least once a weekend. So I think they've got depth issues. I would agree with that. But they're going to be at the top of this conference for sure. It's always a crapshoot, even in March and April, to say how the NCAA tournament's going to shake out. Just a roll of the dice. It's a roulette wheel. It's a couple of spins of the roulette wheel. If they win it again, I would not be shocked. I'll tell you that. But got a lot of hockey to go. It's a good team. And Huskies were able to get something from them, which is, I think, key going forward for them. Again, like I mentioned, I think during the Mankato series, my percent meter of confidence that the Huskies are going to make the tournament. I think after that weekend, I'm at 75%. Let's take it up like 78, 79%. So I think this was a positive weekend in that. Like the needle moved up in the positive direction, in my mind, for St. Cloud this weekend, even with the just the 2 points. So I liked how the Huskies played, and I really liked the performance, the entertainment that I partook in this weekend.
Got your money's worth.
Got my money's worth. That's all I'm asking for.
So, So your Go Huskies Woo player of the weekend, he ended up voting for, or his, uh, player he ended up picking was Grant Crookshank. Just kind of for his all around play. Scored key goals both nights, and obviously that great assist on the Friday game too to drop to Miettinen for the game winning goal. Um, he thought Brendan Bush also played really well defensively. I thought Friday he played well. Saturday was a little bit tougher, but I think that was tougher for everybody when we got dominated on the face-offs and we're chasing the puck for quite a bit of the game as well. Um, and just Cronulla, sometimes defensively or making being a little bit too aggressive and kind of really burned him that weekend. But Grant Crookshank was his player of the weekend. Who would you say is yours?
I did have to think about this one for a little bit. Crookshank was a candidate. I'm going to go with Okabe this weekend.
Nice.
You know, gets I think 3 points on the weekend. Scores the tying goal on Friday, which is just a huge goal. Perhaps the biggest goal of the season so far for the Huskies. You know, a game that give up that late goal to Denver, and you're just thinking that's it. And to get
On the road.
on the road, yep, and empty netter or extra attacker goal, and a clutch goal there. And then on Saturday, like I said, did not factor in the didn't score, but he had that golden opportunity, and assisted on Granola's goal as well. He was just a solid presence all weekend, and I actually thought that Brand played pretty well. We sort of were questioning the move of moving him on that line for Miettinen, but I think that Brand again, I think he's a step up in quality to Carter King or Chronic or someone like that. But I think his role in that line will be to be somewhat of a finisher rather than a playmaker. And if he can, provide that, I think that will be a decent fit. But Okabe and Cranola do have their chemistry, and I do like how they're clicking. So, and Okabe's kind of been a solid player all year. I don't believe I've given him. Yeah, I have not given him the player of the week. I think maybe Go Huskies Woo did once before. We should keep a tally. Okay, yeah, we should keep a tally of that just for trivia's sake. But I feel like he's been, if I was going to do like second or third place of the weekend, I think he would have been in the vote. He would have been also receiving votes similar to Brown.
He'd be the Brown / Cornell of this.
Right. And so I want to throw him a bone, throw this Husky a bone, and I did like his play this weekend. How about you?
I mean, we could have gone a couple of different ways. Both them two were on my list. Obviously, Cronulla was on my list until he got the boot on Saturday. Peart, I thought, on the score sheet, pops over the weekend with 3 assists. But I don't know what it is about his play. But I feel he's okay defensively, but I feel like he makes the wrong decisions when it comes to plays, passes, or breakouts, or something along those lines that he causes just a little bit too many turnovers for my liking. Until he's obviously on the power play and he's kind of, controlling that power play point or whatnot. I mean, he makes, the right moves in that instance. I mean, he's absolutely great in that situation, but some of the breakout stuff kind of ekes me a little bit. And yeah, so in the end, kind of where I ended up going with it is I ended up going back with Grant Crookshank. So it maybe is a little bit of a broken record, but I just feel the play that he had and the big, just the magnitude of the goals that he scored, and coming off of a weekend where, it wasn't really his best weekend just prior. So it's, it's good to see him show up for, the big tilts, I guess you can say. So it's, so Grant Cruikshank is my vote as well.
Stick tap too. Pleasantly surprised to see Josh Lutke in action on Saturday. I was not expecting that. Obviously, I wasn't following the news as close as I would be if I wasn't on the trip, but it was a sight for sore eyes, and he played pretty well. Looks Lutke-esque. Did not seem to be favoring or scared or anything like that. Obviously with concussion, everything can take a while to sort of get your feet back, but made all the plays he needed to make. Didn't blow any coverage. So thumbs up. And if he's now just going to be regularly in the lineup, all the better for St. Cloud, because again, this is probably a top 2, maybe third at worst, maybe third best defenseman, let's say. So I mean, key addition, and also stick tapping to guys like Wiley and Reiners who have stepped up in his absence too. So good problem to have.
Yeah, the strength in our defense that we've always thought that we thought we've had going through these at the beginning of the season has really exceeded even my expectations. I mean, this is a really good group of defense, probably the best that we've had here in a long time at St. Cloud State. So switch over. Western Michigan at home, not going to Kalamazoo. So already that's a win in my book. You hinted at it earlier. You thought, Huskies are prime for a little bit of a letdown this weekend. So kind of what are your thoughts here as Kalamazoo, the Crazies, the Lost in Lunatics, what are your thoughts here as the Broncos here kind of stampede into town? What do Broncos do? I don't know, gallop into town?
Yeah. Let's hope that the Huskies can break the Broncos, maybe tame the Broncos, let's say. I think Western's pretty good. Been scoring a ton of goals. They have 48 goals in the year. They played 11 games, and in 9 of them, 9 times has Western.
9 times?
9 times Western has scored 4 or more goals in the game. Then just the other 2 were losses, obviously. Now you can look at their schedule. Losing to Anchorage, that's potentially, as we mentioned at the time, could be a big loss for them, because Anchorage not going to be very good. And then beating Ferris F State, sweeping, that was just a single game at Ferris, sweeping a home and home with Bowling Green. Bowling Green's not very good. A split.
By the way, with that Denver series, I gave a shout out to Mayhew. That did give me a little bit of flashbacks to that Ferris F
to Jerry,
with Gerald Mayhew. So that I'm happy that that's past us.
Is it bad to say that I thought the same thing too? I looked his name up. He's like he was in the Wild system for a while. I don't know if he still is. We're on the same page there. Sweeping Bowling Green, splitting a home and home with Notre Dame. Notre Dame's decent, and then getting swept in a home and home with Michigan. 2 very entertaining games though, and one of those games went to overtime, but clearly their toughest opponent so far. And then taking care of business with a pair of routs over Miami this past weekend. So you can say, their most quality win right now is that Notre Dame game, and who knows how good Notre Dame is this year. So fair to look at their schedule and be a little skeptical, but Western's a team that we've said this the last few weeks, losing a bunch over this last season. They were a number 1 seed in the playoffs in the NCAA tournament last year, but Borad, Frank, their 2 top scorers are gone. Their 2 top defensemen, with Ronnie Addard and Joyo, both of those guys 30-plus point scores from the point. They're gone. Honorary 45-year-old Josh Passold, 5th on the team in scoring, gone. And their goaltender, Bussy, gone to the NHL. All right, at least he signed a pro contract. And so the like we've mentioned about Denver, Mankato, like I said, is basically par for the course these days. Teams are going to lose those top 3-4 guys on a year-to-year basis. Whoever's their top scorer, look out for them to either go pro or they're seniors and they've aged out. That was the case with Western, as it is the case with a lot of teams nowadays. And like the teams that we've mentioned, Western Michigan has shown an ability to replace them this year, at least so far this year. Of the guys that came back from last year's team, Jason Poland and Max Sasson stand out. They're playing on line now. You're mentioning that Dornbeck, Rizzo, Mazer line as being perhaps the toughest line that St. Cloud's going to see this year. I think I would agree with that, certainly so far. This line, from a point standpoint, of Poland, Sasson, and then newcomer Ryan McAllister, that'll give, from a points perspective, give anyone a run for their money. 19 points for McAllister, 16 for Poland, 15 for Sasson. They're racking up these points against, Poland had back-to-back hat tricks against Miami this past weekend. I think McAllister had a 5 or a 6 point weekend. So I mean, you can point to Miami for as an explanation for that, but points are points. McAllister, being a freshman here, he's 2nd in the country in points right now. So just gives you, to Fantilli, that should give you an idea of the kind of year he's having so far as a freshman coming out of the AJHL. Put up a huge season last year up there. I believe it was the same team that Makar played for in the AJHL. 130 some points.
139 points in 6.
Seems like a late bloomer though, because you look at his stats before that. It looked like he kind of crapped out of the BCHL, had some time there, and then went to the AJHL. Didn't really put up the big year until last year, and coming in as a 20-year-old freshman this year, he seems to have found something in the last few years, and certainly showing an aptitude for college hockey so far with the Broncos this year, and obviously clicking with those line mates, because the majority of his points are with Poland and Sasson getting the other points on those goals. So that's clearly their top line, and number one assignment for the Huskies defensively will be to shut that line down, because if they do, good chance that St. Cloud will pick up a pair of wins this weekend. If that line gets shut out, very good chance that St. Cloud does well this weekend. But Western's got a little bit of depth too, and they were very active in the transfer portal this last year. You will recognize the name Jack Perbix, brother of Nick. Perbix coming over from the Gophers, and so keep an eye on him. He's got 7 points so far this year. Zach Galambos, a defenseman, they picked...
Which, a little bit of a side note here, just a quick congratulations to Nick Perbix for scoring his first NHL goal for the Lightning.
Yeah, and seems like he's sort of settling in there with the Lightning, getting regular playing time.
John Cooper gave him huge praise for that, and really actually huge praise for the college hockey model in general. It's like, yes, he's a rookie. He's 24. Like he's a learned kid. That's kind of what John Cooper kind of said. But.
So, yeah, absolutely. Congratulations to Nick. Hope Jack doesn't get a point this weekend. Put it that way. None. 0. Galambos from the Point, American International transfer. Put up good numbers with AIC over the last couple of years. Actually, he's on the Crookshank path. This is his 3rd college that he's appeared for. He actually started with Mankato, but only got token playing time there. Went over to AIC, kind of established himself at the Point there, and now he's cashing in with Western Michigan. Already got 10 points on the season. Like I said, on the Point, pretty impressive. It includes 4 power play goals too, so he's getting plenty of power play action, and already a plus 14 is very impressive in this young of a season. I think the big question mark for them is goaltending. Cameron Rowe is who they brought in. Huskies saw him last year. We've mentioned his name a few times now because he was the Wisconsin goaltender last year that the Huskies lit up in that Friday game. Was it a 5-1 performance, I believe? Chased him in the second period after he gave up the goals. So the Huskies have only seen him for, I think, a period and change, but scored 5 goals in him last year. And so far this year, just a .900 save percentage, 6-4 on the year, middling goals against. He's played some good games. He had the shutout against Notre Dame, but gave up a bunch to Michigan. A lot of those were on the power play, though. Keep that in mind, I suppose. So he's had some rough games. He's had some good games. And like I said, the Huskies have seen him once before, so maybe they can use some past history to their advantage if they can conjure up kind of their game plan from Wisconsin last year. But I would say that's the big question mark for Western. I think the Huskies will be able to score some goals on this team, but they're going to have to bring their A defense, their A game defensively, because I do think, especially that top line, but they do have the depth as well. I do think this is a good team, and as you're saying, I'm not calling a split. That's just my intuition this week. I do hope that the Huskies prepare for this team adequately. I know that there is a natural sort of letdown, perhaps, in such a kind of big early season test in Denver. You got to keep. It's sort of like how coming out of the Mankato series, that Friday game up in Bemidji was a clunker. I'm wondering if that had anything to do with sort of an emotional letdown from such a exhausting series with Mankato. So let's see if they can keep their eyes on the prize here and give Western the respect they have, or that I think that they deserve, and take them seriously and play well against them. Like I certainly would think a sweep is in the realm of possibility for the Huskies, but they're gonna have to earn it. And this is a team too that's always been pretty physical, and they're becoming under Furschweiler now. They're kind of becoming a offensive minded team, which under Murray it was more the rough and tumble. We're gonna play the size game. It's going to kind of be a football match rather than a hockey game. They still can have a little bit of that, can still throw the weight around, but this is a team also that can score a bunch too. So, I'm looking for some entertaining hockey at the least this weekend, and 2 fun games. And I do. Yeah, I would say the Huskies have the edge on paper, but they don't play them on paper, and I do expect the Broncos to come prepared. So. What are your thoughts coming into this big early season series?
Yeah, I mean, when I say that, this is a team that I feel that if the Huskies are going to prove themselves to be a contender for that NCHC championship, these are the series that you can't drop points to, and maybe I should save that a little bit more for the Omahas and Miamis, which they did take care of Miami. Western Michigan did quite easily. So, but just looking at the, kind of where we're at right now is I feel like this is like the statement game that will get me fully on board, the statement series. And I want the Huskies to come out strong and really take it to this, kind of this back end of this defense, and really make them play on their heels. Cameron Rowe right now only has a .900 save percentage. Looking at, you talked about the offensive juggernaut that they have been this season. They've also given up quite a fair amount of goals as well. When you come to look at the Michigan series and especially. So now, do I think we're on par with Michigan when it comes to offense? No, but at the same time, like you said about Ferris State, they gave up 4 goals to Ferris State, and this is where I feel that the Huskies can really make a statement and show that we are going to finish, in the top couple when it comes to the NCHC. And I really hope that they really take it to the Broncos this weekend.
Yeah, here's hoping.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, the only series this year for the Huskies and the Broncos was it in the original podcast run? Did we anoint this the afterthought series for the NCHC? Because these are the two teams that were not part of the original.
Oh, that's right.
Original 6 of the NCHC.
That's right. Yes.
Maybe the invitational, because these are the schools that gained the invitation to go. They weren't the ones to found the conference on themselves. I don't know. Maybe there's some fans that remember the how.
Let's get a trophy. Let's get a trophy going between Western and St. Cloud. I mean,
been some good games in this series. And I should say about the Denver too. Like wouldn't say that St. Cloud and Denver have like a quote unquote rivalry. I mean, it's certainly not on the par of Denver and North Dakota, for instance, or anything like that. But it seems like St. Cloud and Denver when they get together, they play some damn good games. I remember when I think it was Larson's first year when St. Cloud played them in St. Cloud. And it was both games, I think, were 4-3, 5-4 type games, similar to the ones this past weekend. I think it was like around Thanksgiving was when that series took place too, so kind of the same time of the year. And they were just great games to watch too. So again, I'm not saying it's like a rivalry. Certainly, like there's only a couple of dozen of us in Husky gear that I could spot. So certainly can't have the effect of traveling fans, but I guess you could say the same about Denver and their non-traveling fan base.
Yeah, that's true.
But just very good games between those two teams, and very good games I think in the past between Western and St. Cloud. And as you said, good that they're not playing in Kalamazoo, because recent success there for the Huskies has been few and far between. Haven't won there in several years. But use that fat ice. And it's if they are going to be a team that's going to perhaps compete for home ice, talking about Western, because this is the only series you play against them, it's all that more important to gain a point advantage in this series. Use that home ice to your advantage. Yeah, you're saying originally saying about 4-point plus this weekend. I'm all on board that. Like, I agree with that being the goal. If that's going to be the case is to be seen. But I'm expecting some entertaining games and some high scoring games, I think, this weekend.
Yeah, Western Michigan hasn't faced a defense as good as ours. And that's also to talk a little bit about our goalies too, and how well that our goalies overall have been playing. Like you said, Jackson Castor may have had a couple of leakers go through, but I don't necessarily fault them for any of them. For the second goal, I think he was screened on that one where he didn't see it. The third goal, I think that's Rizzo on Spalacy, so I think Rizzo's going to win that battle 9 times out of 8. So I don't think that's really going to be Castor's fault on those. And then, like you said, Bassie played incredibly well. So on Saturday. So I mean that's where I think Western Michigan is also going to get that test that they haven't seen yet this year. Because I mean, I would definitely put our defense up against Michigan's defense any day of the week.
Put it up there against Notre Dame. Yeah, no, I would agree. I just throwing it out there as far as seeing the stats that they put up, and then kind of reminding myself of the schedule that they've played. It does put it into context, and so we'll see. And what really got them in trouble against Michigan was their penalty kill. Gave up 5 goals on the power play on that Saturday game in Lawson. So team that's known to struggle when it comes to special teams, at least on the penalty kill. So perhaps that's another
right now they're
opening
sitting
for the Huskies to take.
Yeah. So right now they're sitting at 77%
Yeah.
on the penalty kill. So I mean that's not going to turn.
You gotta pump that power play as much as possible, and perhaps that's another sort of opening for St. Cloud to take advantage of this weekend.
We'll see how many tripping calls are going to be throughout the weekend because the over-ending is at 4.5. I feel like there's so many tripping calls this year. I don't know why that is.
Well, one that wasn't called, right? That's all that the Mankato fans would care about. The one that wasn't called.
That's all. Yep. Yeah, exactly. So, whip it around. It was a busy week of college hockey and kind of an interesting one as well. Anything kind of stand out for you? We talked a lot about Western Michigan against Maine. The big
Miami,
I think, kind of. I'm sorry. Yes, Miami. The big surprise, I thought, obviously North Dakota and Omaha going into overtime, and then eventually Omaha winning in the shootout. But North Dakota was up 2-1 and then gave up 2 goals kind of back to back, and had to claw back into that one to tie the game up, to force overtime, really. So that one kind of stood out to me as a little bit of a surprise, as I've been trashing Omaha all pod. So, yeah. Anything else you want to say? Big Ten had some juicy matchups with Minnesota against Notre Dame, and then Penn State and Michigan. That's kind of a real big one, with Penn State winning on Friday, and then Saturday coming back from 3-0 to tie it, then to go to overtime, only to have Michigan end up winning it. Lindenwood beat Army, so that was the big one.
Swept them.
Anything? Yeah, swept them. That's so. Anything as far as around college hockey that you kind of want to toss your hat on?
See, you've ruined me.
Toss your hat on? I don't think that's the phrase. Did I make it up? Sure, we'll toss your hat on it.
You've ruined me. Lindenwood is currently 40th in Pairwise.
No, don't look at it.
They're above such teams as Boston College, Wisconsin.
Are they above or just behind Minnesota Duluth?
Duluth's above. I thought I saw Duluth's at 35. So they're
oh, okay.
But they're within sniffing distance. I would say, yeah, my surprise of the weekend, and
go Lindenwood.
My surprise of the weekend would have been that blitz that CC pulled on Duluth on Friday. 5-rip. And then it took a late goal on Saturday to break a 1-1 tie. Then Duluth got an empty netter to win 3-1 to salvage a split in the Springs. Similar to that Wisconsin sweep, the sweep to the hands of Wisconsin for Duluth. Wondering if this series says more about CC or if it says more about Duluth. I'm not really sold on CC being a great team based on their other results this year, and the trend for Duluth is just not good. So, again, this might just be one of those years where they sleepwalk through the first half. Was it the 2018 national title team? I think they were 7th in the conference at Christmas time. You can fact check me on that, but it's happened before. But I think they've got some goaltending issues. It looks like Stay-Skull did not survive that Friday game, and then this Tyson transfer that they brought in from Maine worked the Saturday game, and I'm not sure if he was brought in to necessarily be the starter. So, not sure if that is going to be a development that continues to play out, and that Duluth continues to struggle on that end of the ice, and their offensive woes too. Just getting 2 goals, not counting the 2 non-empty net goals the whole weekend, is troubling for them. So, yeah, and couple that with North Dakota sort of winning on Friday, but then having to just getting the tie on Saturday. North Dakota has been unimpressive so far this year. Duluth's been unimpressive. And now we're seeing sort of, Miami had a nice little run in October, but 0-4 to start the year, kind of how we expected them to be. Omaha's not looking great. It looks a little down for the conference this year, and we're gonna get more evidence of that as the conference schedule unfolds. But those are my big takeaways from the other action. I mean, as being in person, I was not. My normal routine is having a couple of games fired up. One on the iPad, and watching a couple before and after. I couldn't really do that this weekend, so I'm sure you saw more of the around the country action than I did. Just kind of, I was just keeping an eye on the scores, and that Penn State series certainly I was keeping an eye on. And when I saw the score of 3-0 Michigan on Saturday, in the third period, thinking, okay, well, this is what we kind of expected at Penn State. Good win on Friday, but you're not able to really make a statement and sweep Michigan. But coming back as they did, at least just even bringing that game to overtime before, I believe it was Fantilli scored the winner for Michigan very early in the overtime. Penn State is slowly kind of turning my head, and they still have some work to do in order to really turn my head. They got the Gophers
to get my respect.
Well, they got the Gophers at Mariucci this weekend. It's another chance for you. I don't like Penn State, but begrudgingly they are earning my respect slowly. So those would be the big highlights. And then Minnesota sweeping Notre Dame. Then with that sweep, retaking the vaunted Ustro poll #1 spot. See how long that lasts. But someone's got to be #1 in the Ustro poll, and mine as well be Minnesota. So it's another interesting weekend, and it should be another interesting weekend to come here. But that's all I got for my sort of around the country review.
One of my favorite tweets that I saw was that on Friday's game, like you said, it was a 5-rip Colorado College over Minnesota Duluth. One of the best tweets that I saw was in reference to the guy who had the first assist on Hunter McCown's goal, Brian Yoon, stating that he's so old he played in the NCHC third place game.
That is dating himself with that.
So I looked at that, and well, I mean, I didn't question it by any chance, but yes, obviously it was, March 23rd, 2019, 6-1, Denver over Colorado College. You know who else was in that game playing for Denver? Kyle Mayhew. He was the he was the extra skater on that one.
I thought you were going to say Crookshank. Probably was also in that game for CC. I think he was 2019.
Oh yeah, Crookshank. Yeah, Crookshank was in that game too. Look at that. Wow. Anyway, yeah, I watched a little bit on Saturday because that Merrimack Boston College game was a afternoon game on Saturday. So I watched that, and Boston College, other than the fact that they don't look very good in general, but the Hockey East right now is kind of helter skelter. You got Connecticut leading the way. You got Merrimack at 5 ahead of both Boston College and Boston University and UMass. So kind of flipping everything on its head. Obviously, they've played less games, but or they played the same amount of games as Merrimack. Connecticut's played 7 games in conference, and that's why Connecticut is so far up on the list. But that's just kind of something I found really interesting to see how crazy, I would say, Hockey East.
Well, I think they look better than they have recently. In mentioning that NCHC looks to be perhaps down this year. Hockey East, I think, has a chance to get in a good amount of teams this year. I don't know if you mentioned Providence in there. 2 wins this weekend against UMass, one of those being an overtime win, but 2 key wins there. They're sitting at 6-2-1. Those 2 losses being at Denver. One of those losses in overtime. Providence looks like a team. I think I picked them as my joke team. Like, jokingly, I said they're going to win the national title. I said that seriously, though, right? Wink, wink. So maybe you got to look at Providence and marquee matchup in that conference. Who would have thought this coming into the year? Mid-November marquee matchup, Hockey East, Providence, and UConn with home and home.
UConn.
So
let's get it.
Yeah, keep an eye on that, including UConn hosts the Saturday game. It's an afternoon tilt. So if you're looking for something to watch in the afternoon on Saturday, and you got ESPN Plus, flick that on for some entertainment, because I will for sure. I love those like afternoon games like the Thursday games. I'm seeing a 1:05 start on Saturday, and that's for my time zone. So maybe 2 o'clock for you, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have to flip the week because college hockey news is.
Well, I'm on the app, and as we've mentioned, the schedule can be a little wonky here and some bugs that they haven't quite figured out. But I think that's correct. I'm confident that's correct. Let's put it that way, because I don't know why I'm confident about that. But usually if they're wrong, it says like 9 p.m. for the start time, which this doesn't say that. So
it'll say midnight or 11 a.m. or something like that. So. Woden, I think, actually had a tweet about that, saying that it's the fault of the university who doesn't put the time in correct, so the default goes to 0, which reads as midnight or something, or noon or something along those lines. So, but what a tilt that'll be. So, yeah, maybe I'll tune into that, and I'll watch Maine and Merrimack because I'm intrigued by this Merrimack team now that I watched on ESPN.
Yeah, I watched a little bit. I've watched a little bit of them too. They've played a lot of these. I was saying I like the day games because generally I can watch some of those because they're not going up against like the Huskies or most of the night games. But then Merrimack's also been playing a bunch of like Tuesday and Thursday games. They played one earlier this week against BC. That was their home game on Thursday, and then they, as you mentioned, played at BC on Saturday. So for some, I don't know, can't imagine there's like a scheduling conflict with Merrimack because they're Merrimack. It's not like they got a high-end football team that they got to move mountains in order to not play on regular times for them. Maybe they're sharing the rink with some like prestigious prep team in Andover. I don't know why, but they've been playing some weird, funky, middle of the week games that I've been able. So I've been able to watch more of Merrimack than I normally do. So they look.
Maybe that's their strategy. Maybe they're like the Boise State. I think didn't they have a push to play on like Friday night games or something along those lines to try to get that more exposure? Well, I mean, speaking of afternoon matchups, Saturday, NCHC. Colorado College at Miami.
Oh, yeah.
That's a 5:05 Eastern time. So that's be able to wet our whistle with that one. That barn burner before we get to real hockey.
And I don't even know if you can call that the toilet bowl this year because as we've mentioned about Omaha's start.
Because that week it's Omaha against Minnesota Duluth. That might be the toilet bowl.
Toilet bowl might have been this last weekend with CC and Duluth. Who knows?
We're gonna tick off our one listener, Dan Jacobson from Duluth. Actually, he'd probably be like, "Yeah, it's not good." He'll probably be on.
Just let us know, Dan. I know you will.
Yep, exactly. Long Island against Wisconsin. God, I hope Long Island beats Wisconsin.
Well, then I think they have Lindenwood. I'm really, as you mentioned, I'm liking this Lindenwood team, and I don't think I kind of had my hopes high on Long Island after that Quinnipiac tie. I don't think they've won a game actually. I think they've just had a couple of. Oh no, they beat Post or Stonehill. But other than that, they've not won a game yet this year. So I was a little too high on Long Island, it turned out. But I think they got a shot this weekend.
Yeah. Yep. There you go. So. All right. Flipping over to questions. Most of the questions we've already addressed on the podcast. Obviously, I made my Pairwise rant, so I'm not going to talk about that. We talked about the brand hit. Jeffrey Wood, what is the basis on the one goalie theory? I like our platoon system of Castor and Bassie. So if I'm reading his question right, I think he's thinking, if basically it's really working with the rotating goalies that we have here, is there any reason to really switch from it? And should we just kind of keep it going for the foreseeable future? I am of the mindset that I think it's good until somebody falters and then somebody takes the reins, and we keep riding that. So I expect them to again split time this weekend because I don't see any issue, and there's no sense changing what's not broken. And our goaltending isn't the issue.
Right. Yeah, no.
Isn't near the issue I thought it was
Right.
going to be. That's for sure. Going into this.
Yeah, absolutely. No, we've been pretty consistent on that this year. I'm thinking as far as until it breaks, keep it going. As far as the theory, I'm trying to read the question as far as theory of the one goalie. I mean, maybe they're sort of suggesting that the conventional wisdom is that you want to ride
Exactly.
a single goalie, and I agree with that. Come playoff time, that generally is the case, or that's I can't think of a team that did a tandem in the playoffs and won a national title. Maybe there has been one that I'm forgetting, but generally it is you kind of ride the hot goalie. And NHL you see that with. Yeah, I think you mentioned when the Wild made their run, the 03 team. You had, Rolson had his run, and then Fernandez took over a couple of games, and that's seeming more of a thing in the NHL where you just play so many more games. Like only so many
Well,
swings.
and also you've got a whole series of a playoff too.
If you lose, if you have one bad
it's...
game as a goalie, your team is done because you probably lost that game. Whereas you can use your goalies as a sort of way to generate momentum in the NHL playoffs. You really don't have that luxury in the NCAAs. So, yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Like, what if we go through the entire season and we're in that last series of the regular season against Duluth, and we're still doing Castor on Friday and Bassie on Saturday? I mean, do you just do that in the playoff series, and do you just do that if you make the NCAAs? And why not, right? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we might be revolutionizing how college hockey is being played if we just roll through this the whole season.
I can't imagine that's going to happen.
Less game footage for other teams to really scout because you got to prepare for two goalies now. I don't know how much that actually matters. I don't think that's a real thing. Like, obviously you scout pitchers. I don't know if, maybe they're prone to shooting or letting goals in high like Corona or something along those lines. But but again, that's just a testament to our defense and how well they're playing.
Who's probably the least big fan of the success of this tandem? James Gray.
Yeah, that's
because
true.
we kind of talked about him perhaps getting not just some token action this year, but again, if you don't want to screw it up and if you don't want to just give the job to one guy, your third stringer is not going to get any action, which again, most teams' third stringers don't get much action. He's going to be circling that exhibition game. What is it? Manitoba. I'm sure that's going to be his Super Bowl this year. But yeah, I mean, until there's some cracks here, and I still don't, I saw that Bassie was named National Goalie of the Month, and which is funny because I think I went out of my way to say that I would have preferred slightly preferred Caster in the first month. But, I mean, you look at the stats, and if you're someone who votes on that award, who's likely not actually watching the games, you just look at the stats, and they're a little bit better for Bassey than Caster. So, I'm not surprised that was the case. So, yeah. When it comes to, like, Richter time, they're just a package deal. It's
right.
It's just Bassey Caster, like, the bastard. It's you got to put like the ship name, right? It's like they're a tandem here, and we should come up with a better name than bastard. That's what social media can be good on. How about they come up with a mashup portmanteau name between Bassey and Caster, or you could even do like the first names, Jackson, Dominic. Just workshop this, and someone will come up with something. Get Go Huskies Woo on that. I
want to get to the point where we end the season and both Bassey and Caster are nominated for the Richter. So it's 1-2, and then I don't know, throw in some random third one. But that's what I want to see. They're both being nominated.
Yes, let's see that.
So, that about does her from this episode of the Huskies Hockey Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Anything final thoughts that you want to wrap on this podcast here before we sign out?
I think we've just about said it. I did have a good weekend in the building, getting back. This would have been the first Huskies series in person since I went to Boston in 2018. So it had been some time away from the building, at least when it comes
from
to
the traveling
to Huskies games, and quite enjoyed it. And yeah, if we can get that quality of action on the ice, the Huskies are going to do just fine this year, first of all. But I'm going to be just a happy consumer of hockey, because I thought what was on display was really high quality, and for being an early season tilt, especially like that. I think that's what the coaches even said. It struck them more as a playoff atmosphere, playoff type game than an early season one. So it just there's not much more appreciation for hockey that I can have, but that just ticked it up just a little, ever more slightly. So, excellent time and a good trip. Like, Magnus is not my favorite arena, but I'll
nobody's favorite.
But it's certainly not my least favorite either. So, I enjoyed the time there, and I enjoyed the show that was on display on the ice.
Good. Well, I'm Weldie at More Clappers on Twitter, MOAR More Clappers, and you can reach Andrew at our email address. What's that email address again?
Yep, that's Huskies Hockey Podcast at gmail.com. Send me an email.
Perfect. Please rate us too. 5 stars on the podcast. I will give you a shout out on Twitter, thanking you for it. And if you rate us less than that, I will cry. So don't let that happen.
Don't make Weldie cry.
There we go. That's really the moral of every story.
Yes, it is.
So, well, thank you again, and until next time, go Huskies.
Woo!